nutritionist Mira Calton.
And I'm Dr. Jason Calton, and welcome to Calton Nutrition TV and this episode of House Calls, where we bring home the answers to your questions.
Now, this week we're going to answer something that we've been getting a lot of questions about lately, but we've kind of been putting off actually responding.
Right.
We actually were just going to let it kind of flow and overlook this entire concept, this entire topic, but we've gotten so many questions about this that we're actually going to come forward and make an entire episode on this. It's going to be a little bit longer than the usual episodes as well, because there's a lot to cover.
Yeah, so what we're talking about, of course, is Ben Greenfield put out a blog stating that he found the best multivitamin on the planet, and shockingly to us, it wasn't nutrients.
Now, he's a really good friend of ours. We should
Yes.
say that first. Love Ben, love his book, Beyond Training, fantastic. We even like the people over at Thorne, those Thornies. You know, we give them a lot of credit for some of the different products that they make.
Yes.
But this was kind of shocking to us.
It was, because he basically stated that, you know what I did is I went on a quest. I went on a quest for the best multivitamin I could find, and he went through all these trials and tribulations, and somehow he kind of stumbled on one that was right in his backyard.
And kind of amazing enough, he works for them.
And he works for them, and they pay him a huge amount of money to sell his product. And of course, listen, there's nothing wrong with making money, and in all fairness, we make money when we sell nutrients. Of course, we manufacture nutrients. But what kind of took us by surprise was that he thought that this Thorne FX product was better than nutrients, and a lot of people wrote in. A lot of people who were taking nutrients wrote into his website and said, "Hey, well, I've got like osteopenia, or I'm osteoporosis, and you know, would nutrients be better for me?" And so
he ended up doing a video where he basically answered the question, and he covered a lot of information in it, but he also covered a lot of misinformation in it in our perspective.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to basically show, using our system of grading multivitamins, how much better we actually thought nutrients is, and then allowing you guys to actually look at the data for yourselves and decide for yourselves. If you decide that FX is better, then so be it. If you look at all the facts that we give you below, and what we think is going to happen is that you're going to say, oh yeah, wow, nutrients wins out every time.
Right.
So,
well, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to kind of hold.
What's the system?
The system. So the system, of course, is the ABCs of Optimal Supplementation Guidelines. And if you're not familiar with those, chapters 9 and 10 in our book, Nanki Calories, go over them. And you can also go to abcsofsupplementation.com, and you can see some videos there. But what they basically are is, when we first started to work with multivitamins and micronutrients in general, of course, was when I first met Mira. And Mira had advanced osteoporosis at age 30. Long story short, we needed a way to get these essential vitamins and minerals that she needed to reverse this health condition into her body. And so we found 4 major flaws with the multivitamin as we now know it. And those 4 major flaws kind of reflect into those ABCs. So A for absorption, B for beneficial quantities and forms, C for micronutrient competition, and S for micronutrient synergies. And so what we do is, when we say, hey, this multivitamin or this supplement may be better than another one, we always hold them up to this standard of what we call the ABCs. And we're going to do the same now with nutrients in the Thorne FX product.
So we're just going to jump right in here, and we'll start with A, which stands for absorption.
Right.
Now, Ben did talk about this actually in his video, and what he said was that because they put it into a capsule, it's much better than putting it into a pill. And bravo! I mean, that's an actual fact, and we totally agree. Actually, it's twice as effective to put it into a capsule than a pill. And that actually comes from the PDR, the physician's desk reference, where they actually say that pills are only 10% absorbable, and capsules are 20% absorbable.
Right, so they are 100 times more absorbable than the tablets, which is or twice the amount, which is exactly what Ben and Thorne say about Thorne FX. Now, what didn't they say, Mira?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. They stopped with the 20%. And I don't know about you, but 20% is failing.
Yeah.
I mean, in most places, 20% is kind of failing. We decided that we wanted to go and do what the physician desk reference actually supported, which was liquids, they state, are actually up to 98% absorbable. So, you know, we can't say theirs doesn't absorb based on that fact alone, but what we can say is that liquids are just, in general, are what they recommend for better absorption rates.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So again, with the PDR then, just like Mira said that if you take something in a liquid formula, like you do with nutrients, the multivitamin, of course, we're a powder that you pour into water or some liquid substance, and you drink down, so you're getting that potential of 98% absorbability, which pills and capsules could never replicate. okay?
Right, and so then there were some studies that, actually tested this out, like are pills really more absorbable? And so one great study that we found that was really relevant to this exact topic of the thorn versus the nutrients is one by a guy named, I'm going to slaughter this, Dr. Raymar Lobenberg. And you'll notice that we have a lot of paper with us this time. This is not how we normally do it, but we want to make sure that we don't miss any of the facts that we really want to cover for you.
Lots of research.
Yeah, and also right below you'll see all of these linked. So if you want to read the studies yourself, we've linked them for you this time.
Right.
So this was a study done in the Journal of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences, and what he wanted to do is he wanted to test how absorbable different multivitamins on the market would be.
Right.
And so what they were doing is they took the most popular right off the shelves and decided to put it to a test. And his conclusion was that the active ingredients, or the micronutrients, can only be absorbed if they're released into a solution from the dosage form. Disintegration is the first step in the process. If a mineral has to be absorbed within an absorption window and the dosage form, i.e. pill or capsule, doesn't release its content in a timely manner, then the therapy might be compromised or even fail. So he actually let that window be a 20-minute window for his study.
Right.
And that's what he said. He was going to test them all first for that 20-minute window.
Yeah, and what he did is he actually just went out and he got 49 well-known brand name multivitamins. A lot of the ones that you're, I'm sure, very familiar with. We'll go over those a little bit later. And he wanted to see, so he put these pills and these capsules to this dissolution or this disintegration test. Could they disintegrate within that 20-minute window? And the results showed that 51% of those 49 brand name multivitamins did not disintegrate in that 20-minute disintegration window.
Which is tragic.
So 21 out of the 39 tablets tested, or 54%, and 4 out of the 10 capsules, or 40%. So you can even still see there that 54% of the tablets didn't, whereas 40% of the capsules did. They did perform better.
Which is what we might have expected from that PDR reference earlier.
Right.
Now, some of the worst performers, just in case you're taking any of these, were Kirkland's signature formula, that's Costco brand, Ultimate One for Men, Trophic, Sisu Only One, Super Swiss One, and the GNC Mega Man, which is kind of a shock.
That was a surprise. Yeah, Mega Man did not do well.
Yeah, they failed to disintegrate in that 20-minute period.
Well, we should also mention that for any of the pills and capsules or tablets that didn't disintegrate in the first 20 minutes, he did another test, and he said, well, let's see if they disintegrate in 90 minutes.
Just randomly, let's just see if, if I throw more time, does this have a benefit in your body?
None of those that we just mentioned, including the Mega Man and including the Kirkland, even disintegrated in the 90 minutes. Can you believe that?
It's kind of surprising that there was one in this study that's kind of interesting and important to what we're talking about today.
Yeah, Thorn did have a pill, a capsule tested in this particular study. It was the Thorn Research Multi-NCAP, which they use, and it's still a vitamin that they carry.
And I sort of looked at the ingredients. It looks like it might be the same capsule. We're not 100% sure. But what happened with this one, Jay?
It did not disintegrate in the 20-minute window. Now, let's talk about what happened. Secondly, yes, it did disintegrate in the 90-minute window, but that's the secondary. He wanted to make sure that they could disintegrate in the 20-minute window because there are certain vitamins and minerals that need to be available in the first part of the gastrointestinal tract, and it may be very important that those micronutrients are released in a timely manner.
So while this one was not tested, the Thorn FX was not tested.
Yeah.
The capsule that they did test from Thorn did fail.
Yep.
And all we're saying is that why even have that as an option? Like, why wouldn't you just go to what they say is the best method, which is a liquid or a powder?
So what do? Of course, with nutrients, when we sat down and systematically formulated nutrients to be...
We could have created anything.
We could have created anything. We wanted to create what we considered to be the best multivitamin in the world. That's why we were so surprised when we heard Ben's statement. So we looked at this flaw with multivitamins and said, how can we get around it? How can we get past the 10%, the 20%? We have to create a powder. We want to create a vitamin that's taken in liquid form. And so that's exactly what we did. Now, there's
the American Pharmaceutical Association textbook, which is the APHA, for anyone who wants to read it. They actually state that a drug or supplement dissolved in aqueous or liquid solution is the most bioavailable or absorbable form. Since the drug or supplement is already in solution, no dissolution or disintegration step is necessary, and systematic absorption can occur.
Right.
So there you have it. I mean, pharmacists are like, they know this stuff, and that's why we created it this way.
Yeah, and it's not only that. There's a lot of people, Mira, out there who cannot take pills or capsules. The Harris Interactive, the people who do the Harris poll, went out out and they did a global market research study, and they reported that 40% of the people surveyed have difficulty taking pills or capsules. And the fact is, if a multivitamin is something that we're going to be asking our clients and our patients to be taking every day, wouldn't you want it in a form that the majority of the people in the country can take, you know,
right. The study actually,
day in and day out?
And what the study showed is that people will delay, skip, or discontinue use altogether if they don't enjoy the method of taking it. So 40% of the population is going to skip taking your multivitamin. Sorry, Thor, but they just don't like taking pills. And it's not just one capsule they have to take.
Oh yeah, let's
mention
that.
3 in the morning and 3 in the evening. And that's
180 pills a month, or capsules a month. That's what you have to take with Thorne. Of course, nutrients, it's just 50,
beverages.
Yeah, 56 easy drinks.
Now, additionally, it's not just the 40% who don't like pills and capsules. There's also other groups where it's just not suitable to have your multivitamin in a pill or capsule form.
Right.
Some of those groups are people who have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, hiatal hernias, diverticulitis, and anyone who's undergone any type of bariatric surgery. For those people, being in a liquid or powder form is an absolute mandate.
Yeah. According to the Consumer's Guide for Bariatric Surgery, this is what they say about it. It says chewable and liquid multivitamins are the most easily absorbed and are recommended after all bariatric surgery procedures. They are less likely to cause heartburn and ulcers. So again, what we're trying to talk about here with the absorption is, hey, you know, when you're going to create the quote unquote the best multivitamin in the world, wouldn't you put it into a form that the most amount of people can utilize, that's the most easily absorbed, like we did with nutrients? Why would you put it into a pill or a tablet?
Well, and here's Ben's answer to that. And again, love Ben. This is not a hit on Ben in any way. Or Thorne. But Ben's answer to why they didn't put it into a powder or a liquid is he said it would taste horrible.
Yeah.
He said no one would be able to drink that. It would be filled with tons of sugar and all of that kind of stuff. So, you know,
well, we've got over 1 million servings of nutrients, so we get people calling us day in and day out. You can go right on the website. You can check out the testimonials. People love it. We've got a lime flavor. We've got a strawberry flavor. We've got a chocolate. We've got a vanilla. We've got a citrus splash. We've got a tropical twist. And, of course, for the purists, we have an unflavored, unsweetened version that doesn't even taste bad at all.
So, you know, that was just what Ben said. It was impossible to make into anything that would taste good, and that you'd have to add in a whole lot of sugar.
Of course, we don't add any sugar in. We use all 100% stevia. And
here's the thing. I mean, Ben in his book, Beyond Training, actually lists our book, Rich Eat Poor Food, as the single best guide to how to grocery shop for safe ingredients and how to find good quality ingredients. Well, obviously, we put the best quality ingredients into this product. We didn't add sugar. There's nothing even with sugar in our book.
No.
So we just want to make that clear.
So it is possible, I guess, to kind of, you know, talk about that statement that he made. It is possible to find a quality multivitamin in a liquid form that tastes good and doesn't have a bunch of junk in it. And we definitely prove that with nutrients.
So why didn't we just go with a liquid then? Why did we decide to go with the powder?
It's a good question, you know, and a lot of people might say, well, it would be easier if you just had this liquid. I can just drink it down. I don't have to mix it. I don't have to. Well, there's a couple of reasons. When certain vitamins and minerals are left in a solution for a long period of time, they can start to break apart. A good example of this is B12 can start to release a cobalt ion, and it will start to break down some of the other B vitamins. And so then there's other examples of this too. Plus, a lot of these kind of vitamin drinks are put in clear plastic containers or even glass containers that, you know, light can degrade your vitamins as well. So what we did is we made it into a powder. Yeah,
additionally, we travel a lot, so like TSA is not going to let you in with a whole like big slug thing of multivitamin drink mix, but they will let you in with little powders.
Bring like 30 bottles each?
No, you just can't when you're traveling.
Yeah. So you can do that, of course, with our individually packed sachets. And let's talk a little bit about why we did that. Do we just love spending tons of money? Because it's very expensive to make individual sachets of nutrients. But why did we do that?
Well, okay, there's 2 reasons that we actually did that. First of all, when you put things into a tub, you have to open it every day and you have to close it every day. Yep. You'd actually have to do it twice a day with nutrients. That's a lot of air getting in, that's a lot of light getting in, and that causes oxidation. Yes. That will degrade the multivitamins in there over a period of time, and by the time you're done at the end, you'll have like to chip away at it because it will start, the moisture will start to get to it.
It's all crusty at the bottom.
That's gross.
And of course, what causes that? It's absorbing liquid. It's becoming degraded. It's being oxidized. You don't want that for your multivitamin.
And the second reason is Well, these things have different weights to them. Your
Yes.
minerals can sometimes be really, really heavy. Some of the vitamins are really light. So imagine you put them all in this tub, and over time, they're just going to sink to the bottom.
The heavy ones do, and the light ones stay on top.
Right, so when you take a scoop, how do you know what you're even getting?
Who knows?
Like, it's totally impossible to tell. So we solved that. We put it in single sachets or packets, the AM and the PM, and therefore you know that you're getting exactly what we say in the supplement facts, exactly when you take an AM and PM every day.
Right. It protects it from oxidation. It protects it from that absorption of the water absorption, even from the atmosphere. If you live in an area like we do here in Florida, it's very humid.
Yeah.
You definitely want to protect it from that. So Nutrients does that. Nutrients has kind of covered the bases here with A.
Yeah, and if you just look at A alone, obviously 20% absorbable,
or
98% absorbable. I mean, that's just generally, when we talk about the fact that we wanted to make this an extraordinary multivitamin, like really just anything that we could do to make it better and continue to make it better every time we do another run, that's what we mean.
Yeah.
We don't settle with that 20%.
So let's kind of go over kind of a head-to-head here. Thorne. So it's delivered in a capsule form rather than in liquid. Not so good. It's been shown to have more, the capsules have been shown to have more absorption potential than tablets, but less absorption potential than liquid, right?
Yeah.
There's really no dispute about that in the scientific community.
It's kind of saying like high-fructose corn syrup is better than sugar.
Yeah.
If
you're comparing yourself with the worst thing in the world, maybe you know, okay. So, and also, as you mentioned, Mira, it requires 3 capsules in the AM, 3 capsules in the PM. That's 180 tablets a month. That's not so good for people who may have a hard time taking a capsule or a tablet.
Just don't enjoy it.
So that's kind of where Thorne is. How does Nutrients do?
Well, we're a twice-a-day AM, PM powdered multivitamin, and we're delivered in liquid form, which has been shown to be more suitable for a large group of people, and also a heck of a lot more readily available for absorption than either the tablets or the capsules.
Yep.
We're also packaged in single-serving packets to protect the powder from micronutrient depleting elements like the light and the air, and it's also sugar-free. It tastes great, and it's really easy to use. You can just put it in your protein shake or anything that you're already doing, and it's just so much simpler and tastes better.
And it really is great for travel. We have so many people who, you know, are always traveling for work or for pleasure. It's so easy to pop it. You know, you put Nutrients right in the bag. It's light, it's easy, it's transportable. So that covers A. So as far as A is concerned, you of course, are here to make your mind up, but it looks to us, in our opinion, that Nutrients may beat Thorne FX out in the A category for absorption. So what's the second category?
Well, B is for beneficial quantities and forms. And we're going to first start off by giving them a round of applause because they did something right here by making it a twice-a-day formulation.
Good job,
Just
Thorne.
the same as we do with Nutrients. We both have twice a day.
Yep.
And of course, that's because some things are water-soluble and they run through your body at 12-hour intervals. And so it really keeps you just a lot more complete with that.
Right.
So we like that. Of course, we are 2 times a day with an easy drink, and they're 2 times a day with 3 pills or 3 capsules. So, you know.
But that's all right. So that's
they got that right.
They got that right. Now, what about some of the forms that they're using?
Well, we like the fact that they chose for B12. We like the fact that they chose the methylcobalamin, not the cyanocobalamin, because that is the better form.
Yep.
And also that we like the fact that for the folate, they were ahead of the game, and they do use 5-MTFH, which is a much more absorbable form for many people around now.
Yeah, of course, Nutrients uses both of these forms too, so it's kind of a wash there. Thorne was actually an early pioneer using the 5-MTHF folate, which is an alternative to the synthetic folic acid. And again, Nutrients has the 5-MTHF in it, Nutrients has the methylcobalamin in it.
Right there, it's a draw.
So there's a draw. Now, here's something that's kind of interesting, because both on Ben's website, under the blog that he did, as well as Thorne's, when it comes to one of the traits that they say that the Thorne FX pill or a capsule has, it says, quote, I'm going to quote it exactly. Here's a benefit: higher dose of magnesium and calcium than typically found in a multivitamin. Now, we found that interesting because when you just look at Centrum, which is just a pretty typical multivitamin, Centrum has more calcium than Thorne FX has. Centrum has 200 milligrams, whereas the Thorne FX has 88 milligrams of calcium and 170 milligrams of magnesium.
It's just not a true claim.
Not a true claim.
And not a true claim at all. I don't know what multivitamin you're looking at that does maybe a gummy. Some really bad gummy out there might not have enough, but well, that was one of the things that upset me. And then, you know, everyone knows that I had osteoporosis and that I reversed it. And this is really, I work with these women constantly on our website to try to make sure they're getting enough of their calcium and magnesium, especially because magnesium is so popular, is so commonly deficient, and it plays a role in so many functions in the body, not just your bone health. But what really got me is that a woman had written into him, actually, when he first did his first blog, asking if Thorne was going to be okay. Actually asking if they should look at nutrients.
Right. Because
she had osteopenia already.
Yeah.
And Ben's answer, which...
Don't worry about it. You know,
just have some bone broth.
will be fine. Take some bone broth.
Now,
and that's going to be good for you.
No, this is not anything against Ben. In our studies, in what we believe in, there is no way this is going to be adequate for that woman.
No.
Additionally, we just feel that if you don't have what somebody is asking for in your product line, send them to somebody else. It's about collaboration with other great professionals. You know, if someone came to me and they wanted to know about trading things, I would just say, go ask Ben.
Yeah.
That's not my thing.
Yeah.
But if someone goes and asks them about osteoporosis, probably best to say, go talk to the girl who had it.
Right.
And you know, obviously this isn't enough. 88 milligrams. We'll just start with the whole calcium thing.
Yeah.
We have 600 milligrams.
600 milligrams in nutrients. We're using an ionized calcium citrate form, as well as 400 milligrams of, again, ionized magnesium citrate in nutrients. So we
as
give
opposed
you
to
the
their
full
170.
RDI.
Right.
So they have 170 and 88, so there's comparison. Now, why didn't they put more in? Now,
this is fun.
Ben is he knows about athletes. He knows that athletes are usually very deficient in zinc and magnesium. He knows the benefits of being sufficient in zinc and magnesium and other minerals. So why didn't they put more in?
Well, Tom actually answered that question. And Tom, we love Tom.
Yep.
Tom Nicola, he's a Thorny.
Yep.
Traveled with him twice in the past couple of years. He actually said this in quotes: the 170 milligrams of magnesium was the most we could squeeze into the capsules without raising the capsule count to 7 or 8 per day. He agrees with Ben in saying that 3 in the morning and 3 in the evening feels about right. Going higher gets to be too much for many people. So rather than give them what they need,
rather than making the best multivitamin on the planet,
we're just going to say it doesn't fit.
Doesn't fit. Don't need it.
And in fact, you know it doesn't fit, and you don't need it.
Yeah.
But we're still going to claim
it's higher than others. Come on. All right. So, again, use your best judgment here, we're just laying out the facts.
Now, we can put it all in because we're a powder.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how much drink mix I put into a glass. It doesn't make it any worse or any better for you. You just stir it in and it all dissolves.
Right.
So we can afford to do that because we did the smarter A, now we have a smarter B.
Right. And a lot of you might be wondering, why are we paying so much attention to zinc and magnesium, calcium and magnesium? Are they that big of a deal? Of course, it's a really big deal. There's so many millions of people with osteopenia and osteoporosis. It's even becoming a disease that's prevalent in the male society, which is new. We're talking about 80%, according to Carol Dean, who is kind of the expert, Carolyn Dean, who is kind of the expert on magnesium. She says up to, quote, this is up to 80% of the U.S. population is suffering from a magnesium deficiency. So you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to take a multivitamin. It's going to help to protect me. I'm going to get all this stuff that I need in there. Well, not with the Thorne FX.
Yeah, and calcium also, when we started to study the Practical Paleo Diet, we love Diane, and also Primal Blueprint, Mark Sisson, everyone loves him. We looked at those 2 diets and we actually did a study of naked calories, looking at which micronutrients were not being delivered in the programs. The most efficient micronutrient was actually calcium.
Yeah.
So these 2 groups, which I know a lot of people are Ben's followers that follow paleo primal lifestyles, they really need to watch out for this calcium deficiency and make sure that their supplement has enough calcium.
Yeah, no, again, Ben said, go ahead and just have the bone broth. And then this woman actually did write back underneath and said, hey, I've got bone broth boiling on the stove right now. I can't wait to do it. But really, be honest with yourself. Are you eating bone broth every day? Is it realistic to take bone broth on a daily basis for the rest of your life? And then ask yourself, how much calcium is really in a bowl of bone broth? Not very much. It's certainly not going to be 600 milligrams like what you're going to be getting with nutrients. Now, why did we only put 600 milligrams in nutrients? Because that's how much your body can absorb at one time. So we put 600 milligrams in there, and you're going to have to get the rest through your food or with an additional supplement of, again, 600 milligrams later in the day if you're not eating foods that are going to provide for you at least that 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams per day.
And then another group who Ben should be very familiar with, who are really deficient in their magnesium, are athletes. Yeah. And Ben knows this. If you look at his website, he's done an amazing job at really covering how magnesium is really, really important. And he actually quotes a scientist on this later. We'll discuss that little tidbit. But he's really, really aware of the fact that magnesium is important. Remember, electrolytes, both calcium and magnesium, become more and more deficient the harder you work out. So that's just another reason why you want enough of it in there.
So nutrients provides everything that you need with those 2. Thorn FX doesn't. Again, there's the facts. Now let's talk about what nutrients does with some of these others. So let's talk about vitamin B3. So there's two forms of vitamin B3, right?
Which is niacin.
Niacin and niacinamide. Two different forms. Two forms have two very different actions in it. So if you're taking a multivitamin, wouldn't you want both forms? Wouldn't you want the form that lowers the LDL and lowers the cholesterol and raises the HDL, raises the good one? Of course, that's niacin.
Right.
And wouldn't you want the kind that's been shown to kind of help to stabilize blood sugar levels? That's the niacinamide. So, of course, nutrients provides both forms, whereas the Thorn FX only provides the niacinamide.
Yeah, we're always, more forms the better when you're trying to decide what you're looking to put in there generally, because they have different functions. And another great example of that is vitamin E.
Yeah.
They decided to use D-alpha tocopherol and D-gamma tocopherol, which is 2 of the 4 forms of the tocopherol family.
Yeah.
Now, vitamin E has 8 forms. There's the tocopherols and the tocotrienols, and there's alpha, beta, gamma, delta of both of those 2 families.
Yeah.
And what they found out is lately, they've actually been looking at these and studying them a lot more, because they all have completely different functions, and it's really, really cool how varied they are.
Yeah.
What they found out is that the University of California basically has decided that the tocotrienols are 40 to 60% more effective as antioxidants than the tocopherols, the ones that they're using.
But they don't have any.
Right, they don't have any tocotrienols. But what we did, because we are aware of this and because we always try to formulate to be the best multivitamin, what we did is we put in all 8 forms so that you can get all of the individual benefits, kind of the way they work together in nature,
right,
to make sure that they're all supporting each other and giving you all the great things that they do.
Yeah, I mean, so let's say what they did do right, Thorn did do something right, they're using the natural form of vitamin E.
It's not DL.
It's not a DL, it's not a synthetic version, but as Mira pointed out, 2 of the 8 family members, I think, again, this is going to be totally up to you as to what multivitamin you want to be putting in your body and in your family's body, but that's in our short-sighted in our vision. Also, let's talk about vitamin K.
Right.
Vitamin K is so important now. Vitamin K is so important, especially vitamin K2.
And we're glad to see they put in K2. A lot of them don't. So again, we're not saying that Thorn's horrible. We're just saying that in fact, we think that they're better than a lot of them out there. But we're saying that, they're maybe not as good as us, but
right. So they have vitamin K1 and they have vitamin K2.
Right.
And according to Tom, again, in the website, somebody asked what form of vitamin K2 are you giving? And he says we're giving vitamin MK4, which is one, again, of two forms of vitamin K2. Now, what do you think nutrients does? Nutrients gives you vitamin K1 and gives you vitamin K2, both forms, MK4 and MK7. Why? Well, because MK4, sure, it's been shown to help to reverse osteoporosis, but MK7 is shown to reduce the risk of bone fractures and cardiovascular disorders. So wouldn't you, again, want both forms in the vitamin that you're taking on a daily basis?
Absolutely. Keep yourself covered.
Yeah. So,
now, the next one that I want to talk about was like a, oh no you didn't moment for me, because I just
I was surprised.
Drop jaw, oh my,
yeah.
What? Okay, anyway. They have in their formula, in the AM, they have, and in the PM, they have 750 micrograms of copper in the AM and 750 micrograms of copper in the PM.
Yeah.
Now we have left it out of nutrients. And the reasons that we did is actually due to some pretty crazy studies that you can look it up below. But the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine actually published a statement last year calling for the FDA to mandate that all multivitamins remove copper from their formulations.
Right.
And if you look at all of our colleagues who are really micronutrient researchers, Furman, for example, Mercola obviously has a huge department, they've all taken copper out, and in fact a lot of the Thorn ones do as well.
Yeah, Thorn does offer copper and iron-free vitamins. They just didn't decide to do it with this formulation, and this is going to be a pretty big deal. Now, why is copper so potentially dangerous?
Well, copper, too much copper in the body can actually hinder your body's ability to destroy the proteins that form the plaque that's found around the brain in Alzheimer's patients. So they did these studies and they found that many Alzheimer's patients are found to have elevated levels of copper.
Right.
And then when they wanted to determine why they had elevated levels, it was found that their multivitamins contained copper.
Right.
So
this is why the Physicians Committee on Responsible Medicine is calling for the FDA to ban manufacturers of the multivitamins to be able to put in copper into their supplements. Now,
and additionally, I mean, there's one group that should definitely not be having copper.
I think we're going to see this as a recurring theme, so I'll preface it with that.
Pregnant women.
Yes.
The toxicity actually is a real big problem because copper levels can nearly double during pregnancy. Then that makes toxicity a concern.
Yep.
So pregnant women, this is definitely not suitable for you.
Right.
The Thorne effects is not suitable for pregnant women.
In our opinion.
In our opinion, because it has the copper in it. And there's a lot of great studies on why copper shouldn't be in prenatal vitamins.
Right.
Whereas we have a lot of women who we call them our nutrients babies that that are taking nutrients. So
because copper can cause cramps, it can cause abdominal pain, vomiting, nausea, diarrhea. It can cause, and even liver damage are all common when taking supplements that include copper. And it's also very competitive. We're going to be talking about micronutrient competitions here in a little bit, and copper competes with 8 different micronutrients. So it's one of the most antagonistic
one of the ones that should definitely be
minerals out there,
in our opinion. Also, there's 2 other ones that we just think they just didn't put enough in.
Right.
The first one being lutein, which is really amazing for age-related macular degeneration. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but we have 6 milligrams in it, and that's how the Tufts University actually says you need to have 6 milligrams of lutein in order to be beneficial for AMD and just for your eyesight. So we included all 6.
Yeah, I think they have 900 micrograms in there, so that's not quite enough. And why, you're putting it in there, but you didn't put it in the amount that you really needed in order to really help the people that can be helped by it. Also, choline. Choline is an essential micronutrient, yet they only put in, 150 milligrams. We, of course, have 425 milligrams in there because we want to make sure that you have enough of that essential micronutrient.
So those are 2 that we felt that they skimped on as well.
But they did add things into their multivitamin that, now, of course, they're not
they
vitamins or minerals. So they left room in their formula. Very interesting. And this is a point. They don't have enough room to put in the magnesium and the calcium that we need.
Right.
But they've got plenty of room for a bunch of other stuff. Now let's look at this other
stuff. And this is what you should really be paying attention to. Like, we put in essential things that your body needs at the right amounts, and they decided to add in some accessory things which you might not know might not be so good for you.
And you might not want it in your multivitamin. A lot of these things, as you'll see, may be beneficial for a certain group of people, but do you really want to be taking it day in, day out? Let's see what the science says.
Well, the first one is curcumin, and that basically, there's a bunch of people who should not be taking it. Now, we actually say that it is very good for some people. It does have some benefits in some studies,
there's a lot of
but
studies
not for everybody,
benefits.
not every day.
Who shouldn't be taking it?
Pregnant women, again.
Again.
So it might promote a menstrual period or stimulate the uterus, putting their pregnancy at risk.
Right.
So again, this is not a prenatal. Also, people with gallbladder problems, if you have gallbladder problems, it will make them worse. You should not use it if you have gallstones or bile duct obstruction. Who else?
It interacts with people taking statins. Now, again,
That's
we're not big
small
fans of statins. No, it's not a small group of the population. 25% of Americans, 1 out of 4, and of course that number is rising on almost a daily basis. You should avoid curcumin if you are on statins. Also, if you're undergoing chemotherapy treatment. We saw, I think on WebMD, they talk about you don't want to be taking it if you're undergoing chemo. So
that's just the first one. Then they have the philodendron amaranth bark extract.
Again, not an essential micronutrient. We're talking about just an extract of a bark. And pregnant women, it states very clearly, it is unsafe to use philodendron when pregnant. Again, not wanting to, in our opinion,
it's a really important time for women.
It's such an important time. You're really wanting to get all these vitamins and minerals in, and of course, this is a time when most women will use a multivitamin, even if they don't the rest of the time.
Now, we don't know if he says anywhere on there that this is safe or unsafe for pregnant women. We just want to make sure that people understand that nutrients is safe.
Yep.
We don't put any of these other things in.
The last one that they add in, kind of again as an accessory, is magnolia. Magnolia. So is magnolia safe long term?
Well, here's the funny thing. Now, your multivitamin you're supposed to take every day, I would assume for long periods of time, probably the rest of your life as a security, But here's the problem. There's no long-term studies on Magnolia past that are saying that it's even safe for 6 weeks.
Ever past 6 weeks. So the studies have been for 6 weeks long. We don't know what's going to happen if you take it for 52 weeks.
But you want to be the guinea pig.
We don't want to be the guinea pig. It also works as a sedative. Now, of course, they're probably putting it in their PM dose to help people to sleep. And then, of course, they want that claim. They want the claim of, will help you to sleep better. But you know, you got to be very cautious. What if you take it at 5 o'clock and then you go out to dinner? Maybe you have some wine with that, or you go to a club or a bar later.
Increases the effects of the alcohol.
It does, and you're supposed to be extremely cautious if you're drinking. So again, this is something, again, why do you want that in your multivitamin?
Well, shouldn't your multivitamin anyway basically get your circadian rhythm in check, and you should be able to make it so you naturally, I don't want a crutch.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that my body is just running in tune with itself.
This one, of course, is the same with statins, too. You got to avoid it if you're on statins.
And it has anti-blood clotting effects.
Yep.
They actually say in the WebMD that you have to stop taking it 2 weeks prior to any minor surgery, and we read even like tooth surgery and dental issues and stuff like that because of its anti-blood clotting. So I don't know if anyone out there has to go to the dentist soon, but just you should be aware that adding Magnolia is probably not a good idea for anybody who's got blood clotting issues as well.
Right, and of course, pregnant women, again, it puts pregnancy at risk. Never use Magnolia pregnant or breastfeeding, according to WebMD. So.
Okay, there you have it. So, in our estimation, when we look at the B category, we've got beneficial quantities and forms. Some things we both do the same. We did great.
Sometimes they did very well.
And then we feel like we added in a lot more of the forms necessary and a lot more of the essential micronutrients necessary.
The quantity as well as the forms. I think, again, we want you to be the judge, but when it comes to beneficial quantity and forms, how do you think nutrients does stacked up against Thorne FX?
You can decide for yourself.
So next we're going to move on to our final category, C and S. Of course, that stands for micronutrient competitions and micronutrient synergies.
Right. Now, this was like the game changer.
This is the game changer.
When, we first started trying to reverse my osteoporosis, we literally, this is the one thing that we actually found to be the most effective part.
Right.
And why don't you have to explain a little bit about what micronutrient competition or antagonism is? Well,
again, a micronutrient competition is likely the biggest revelation in supplemental science in the last 80 years. And what do we mean by that? Well, how many times have you started to see now popping up in the media, whether it's on, on USA Today, New York Times, Forbes magazine, they're coming out and they're saying multivitamins don't work. Multivitamins may even be dangerous. Now, why? Why
and
are they
the same
that?
magazine says vitamin D is awesome in studies, and calcium is awesome in studies, and magnesium is beneficial, and vitamin E is amazing. But when they put it in the multivitamin, they say, thumbs down.
Why? Why is it that there's literally thousands of great research studies about the individual benefits of the individual micronutrients, but when you put them together, like Mira said, in a delivery system known as the multivitamin, together, why do the results go down so much? Why are the benefits not really there?
Well, some of it is absorption. They're probably in some really poopy pills and capsules that didn't actually get absorbed by the body.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons. And they probably didn't give enough of certain micronutrients. But this is really the other reason that we're going to talk about now. The big reason why they didn't work is the competition.
We believe it really comes down to these competitions. So you might say, okay, what are you talking about competitions? Vitamins and minerals compete for receptor sites for absorption and utilization within the gastrointestinal tract? Yes. Yes, this is known. Science has known this.
We are not the researchers on this.
We didn't create or discover a single micronutrient antagonism or competition as we call them, but there's a lot of other great scientists out there who have. And what we basically did is we just kind of searched through thousands of these peer-reviewed medical journals, and we looked for cases where researchers found and documented these, what they call micronutrient antagonism.
Now, just to review a little bit, when Ben was asked about this in his video, he said, there's nothing really to these, and your body will just figure it out over time.
Yeah, it's not how food works. The body will just get used to it.
So just keep that in mind as we work through this, because it's kind of interesting that he said that.
Yeah.
So how did you first figure out where did you first start hearing about these antagonisms or competitions?
So I tell you, this is really a topic that changed my life, changed your life. 15 years ago, I was reading a magazine that was published at the time by Bill Phillips, if you remember. It was called Muscle Media Magazine. It's not even around anymore, but they had an article in there it was called Mineral Rights. It was written by a gentleman named Brett Hall, who was a registered dietitian, and he was interviewing at Dr. Lorraine Barilla, PhD. She is an expert on minerals, and she is a researcher out of Western Washington University. And the article was basically about how important minerals were for athletes, specifically that zinc and that magnesium that we just talked about.
And if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump in here. This same woman, Dr. Lorraine Barilla, is such an expert that Ben actually quotes her a lot on his website when he's looking for research on magnesium and zinc and the other minerals needed for athletes. So she's a pretty credible woman. Listen, what did she have to say?
Well, what she said was, first of all, athletes are not getting enough of these vital minerals, and that if they become sufficient in those minerals, that their performance will go up. But then, this is what really got me. She started to talk about these mineral antagonisms, and quite frankly, I had never even heard of them before. I, like a lot of other nutritionists and probably medical and nutrition professionals, were recommending regular multivitamins for my clients. I would say, take one. It's an insurance policy. How bad could it be?
Right.
But when she started to talk about how certain ones may compete with one another and neutralize or cancel each other out, it really made me start thinking. And then, of course,
I came along.
Mira came along, and she said, I want to reverse this osteoporosis naturally. And so I started to put two to two together. I said, well, if we're going to create a formulation for her to be able to take,
let's make it the best multivitamin ever.
And let's separate those known micronutrient antagonisms or competitions. So that's exactly what got us started with this. That's the article that started us on the path. We started, of course, with a few that she mentioned.
We mapped out a whole bunch of them, and what we found out is they actually occur at 4 different times.
Yes.
So it's not just like one way that these things can be hindering your multivitamin. There's actually 4 different ways. So the first one is a chemical competition.
Right. So chemical competitions, and we'll go over each one of these just briefly. Chemical competition can take place when the manufacturer of the multivitamin pill is creating the formulation itself. So this is before you take it. This is during the manufacturing process. And this is when 2 or more vitamins or minerals can create insoluble complexes or insoluble salts so that the body, when you take it in or ingest it, you can't digest it. And a good example of this is what happens with folic acid or vitamin B9 and zinc. These can form... folate or zinc can cause an insoluble complex to occur, and making it very difficult, or if at all, to be able to be digested.
Now, let's just be really clear here. These competitions are micronutrient competitions. They're not mineral competitions. They're vitamin and mineral competitions.
Yes.
They occur for both the vitamins and the minerals.
Now, sometimes vitamins compete with vitamins, sometimes mineral with mineral, and in this case, we just show this is a competition between a vitamin and a mineral.
So then the next one is biochemical competition. And this is the one that you hear about a lot. And this happens when after you've ingested the micronutrients in the multivitamin, but before the micronutrients have been absorbed. And this is because they compete for a common receptor site in your body or a common transport pathway.
Right.
And this is the case between lutein and beta-carotene. Now, just as a reminder, we're going to talk about lutein and beta-carotene a little bit later, but you can look at the studies on that.
Yeah. Then there's the physiological competition. Of course, this takes place after everything's been absorbed and when both of the micronutrients in question are already in the body, so they can compete and decrease one another's utilization. This is a good example of this is that copper, because we just talked about
which
copper.
You don't want in your formula anyway.
Has been shown to reduce the activity of vitamin B5 or pantothenic acid. So that's another example of a competition.
And then the final one is clinical competition, and the clinical competitions aren't something that you have to worry about when you're taking it because it's not a formulation issue. But this is an example, and that's basically when having too much of one can mask the deficiency of another. And the best classic example here is that folic acid or folate, vitamin B9 and B12, because folate can actually mask a B12 anemia.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot of times when people get their blood work done and it looks like everything's fine, and a lot of clinicians don't really understand that one actually masks the other, but that's just another form of competition.
Right. So again, we just want to point out we did not discover any of these. This is again us going through the research, us finding reputable and well-known experts in their field. Right. This has been published in peer-reviewed documents.
There's a lot of documents, and a lot of people have already known about these. We just were really, really good at putting them all into one place and organizing them. There's a photo that you're going to see below called the Web of Competitions. And you can see in the common multivitamin, everything on the left and everything on the right, they're both what the ingredients would normally be. I think we have 34 micronutrients. And you can see all the red lines and how crazy that is.
Right.
Because those things are all the lines of competition. And until you get rid of those lines, you really don't have much of a chance of absorbing much of your micronutrients.
Right. So again, we started with Dr. Barilla's few that she mentioned in that article, which were zinc and calcium and copper and zinc, and we went on from there. We found about 34, actually we found 48 different competitions. That's what we found and discovered, and we utilized and we actually separate in nutrients, so we get rid of 48 different competitions. But when we look at a group of about 34 different micronutrients, which are typically included in these multivitamin type formulations, we found that 30 of the 34 have at least one competition. We found that 15 out of the 34 have 3 competitions, and iron actually is the most competitive that we found, with over 10 different micronutrient competitions. So again, look at that web of competition there and think about if your vitamin isn't formulated using an anti-competition technology like what we invented, you're not going to be able to get rid of it. Now, why do you think the companies like Ben, maybe like Thorne, maybe some others might poo-poo the idea of anti-competition?
Well, it's actually kind of funny you said that, because Ben's kind of talking out both sides of the mouth here. Now, I don't know if he realizes it, but Ben says anti-competition doesn't work over here. But then Ben and Thorne chose all chelated minerals from a company called Albion over here.
Right.
Now, I don't know how many people know this, but chelation of the minerals is done because they understand that micronutrients have competitions. So the science that they're using actually shows us and proves to us that they actually do believe in antagonisms or micronutrient competitions.
Right. I mean,
they actually tried to solve the problem with the technology that was available to them, but only in the mineral department.
Yeah. So maybe if they would have used Ben's advice, they would have just forgotten about it. They just said, you know what, the body will get used to it. But they didn't do that. They used the science, and you can go right on Albion's website. That's ALBION. And look under the mineral antagonism section, and they say the reason why they went and got over 100 patents is because minerals are antagonistic. They compete with one another.
Right.
So they said, well, how are we going to get around it? We want to do something about it. So what they do is they actually take it and chelate it, as you mentioned, with an amino acid, usually glycine, because that's the shortest, smallest one. And what they do then, and this is kind of an important thing, and I think certainly be interesting for future research, it changes the mineral. It makes it so it's not antagonistic with their natural competitors, but it also changes the way it's absorbed. So you're not even absorbing it through the natural pathway anymore. Now that mineral is being absorbed along with the amino acid in the amino acid pathway. How is that going to change things? I don't know. They've got a lot of great research showing that the absorption rate is higher in the minerals, obviously because they've gotten around the competition. But what they didn't do, and I think Mira did a good job pointing out, is while that is good for the minerals, and what I'm assuming Ben didn't really realize when he said anti-competition is not that important, there's a reason why Thorne is spending all this money on chelated minerals, because it is that important, but it doesn't protect you against vitamin antagonism.
Right, so they do understand that anti-competition is the wave of the future. They do understand that these antagonisms occur. They did try to separate as many as they could, but they couldn't get rid of the vitamin ones.
Right.
So,
now why don't they just, why else might they say, well, anti-competition with the vitamins is not that important?
Because they have a whole lot of products that's not using it. They don't want them all to sit on the store shelves.
Right, and because they don't have this. This is a U.S. patent. This is what, this is a method for reducing micronutrient competitions in supplementation and multivitamins.
Yeah, and they don't give these out. I mean, they don't just give these out. Literally, how many hours were we on the phone with the U.S. Department?
Goodness.
6 years of them researching our research on antagonism and anti-competition for us to be able to get that patent. So we actually know that the science behind it is extremely strong. The U.S. government knows, and that's why they gave us the patent. Right,
and of course these other multivitamin companies are going to say, it's not that important, because otherwise they have to come and license that through us. Now we have different multivitamin companies that have already come to us, and we are going to be doing some licensing with anti-competition technology.
The whole thing is to make everyone healthier.
Right, so we want to share that knowledge with them, but they can't just do it on their own. Nutrients is the only multivitamin formulated in the U.S. that can use anti-competition currently.
So people might ask, how powerful is it to separate micronutrients?
Yeah, let's talk about that, because it's that big of a deal, really.
Yeah, it is a big deal. And this is, we wanted to give you an example. So we're going to go back to that beta-carotene and lutein example that I was talking about earlier. So in 1998, they did a study. It was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. And in that study, they had a statement, and the statement was lutein negatively affected beta-carotene absorption when the two were given simultaneously. And that was really, really important because up until then, whenever they were trying to help people with AMD, they were actually giving both of those at the very same time because both showed benefits for AMD.
Right.
And so that would be reasonable.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, when they decided to actually separate them and do a study on that, the head developer, Edward Paul, PhD, he actually said what they discovered was, in quotes, ground shaking. He said that simply separating and understanding the competitions between lutein and beta-carotene, when they accounted for that, the benefits of the micronutrients were finally realized, and micronutrient supplementation either improved or stabilized vision in 76.7% of the patients.
Can you imagine?
Like 76.7%. You actually got benefits because only 2 micronutrients were finally separated.
When they just took in those micronutrient competitions for just those 2 micronutrients, again, look at that web of competition down there. See all those red lines. If you can get that kind of benefit by just using anti-competition technology in that one instance, imagine what you could do. Imagine how powerful the multivitamin could really be.
And we do actually have clients that have come to us who had worn glasses their entire lifetime, and then they started taking nutrients and they don't wear glasses anymore, and they thought like it was some crazy miracle when all it was a long-term deficiency that they had never taken advantage of before.
Let's read what Dr. Paul actually said about this. He says, quote, "This information will really turn the way we look at nutrition on its ear." He adds that this new understanding of micronutrient competition represents a huge paradigm shift when you consider that we've been recommending lutein to be combined with other antioxidants, which is a reasonable thing to recommend. But when these 2 nutrients are competing for the same receptor site, they're only neutralizing one another. Science understands this. Do you see why we're so passionate about this? We don't want multivitamins to get a bad rap. We don't want the FDA to come out and say multivitamins are dangerous and they're not working. Science knows about these antagonisms. They're not telling you about it. They're not telling you that one of the major reasons...
They're not solving the problem.
They're not solving the problem. There's no real financial benefit for them to do it. You're already buying. It's a $36 billion a year industry. We're already buying the multivitamins. Over 50% of the population already take them, but we want it to work correctly.
Right. So what we did is we can't say how many micronutrients in thorns are definitely having competitions because obviously the chelation is going to play some role with the minerals, but we can say when we did look at it how many of the vitamins were going to actually have an issue. So
when we looked at their essential non-mineral components, specifically the vitamins there, there is a possibility for up to 60% of those to fall prey or victim to this micronutrient competition we're talking about. And we really can't overemphasize the paralyzing impact micronutrient competition is having on the multivitamins.
Look back at those lines again in that web of competitions. I mean, imagine how the heck are you going to get any benefit if it's not taken care of?
Right. So let's look at, because I think a lot of people are saying, well, you know, if this is really such a big issue, you know, why are we talking about it? Why aren't people recommending to these big vitamin manufacturers here in the U.S. and around the world to do something about it? Well, they are. And this is, again, a direct quote from the late Derek H. Shrimpton, Ph.D. He, of course, was the scientific advisor to the European Federation of Health Product Manufacturers. This is what he says. He says, the benefits of a multivitamin may not be fully realized in those instances where the possibility of micronutrient interaction or competition has been ignored. He's been trying to tell people, along with other medical professionals for years, let's do something about these competitions. Let's unlock these benefits, these known benefits of the vitamins and the minerals, the essential vitamins and minerals that are typically put into the multivitamin. Let's be able to help people like Mira who have advanced osteoporosis and other people who are suffering. And this is why it really gets our goat when other companies come out and they say, no, we've got the best multivitamin. Well, that's fine. Listen, you want to make money? That's great. But really and truly, let's try to formulate as a group, as manufacturers of multivitamins, let's really make a change and let's do the things that we're talking about. Let's make them more absorbable. Let's put in the beneficial quantities and forms. Let's make sure that those competitions are accounted for.
Absolutely. And we sort of looked at the different micronutrients, and the ones that we thought would be affected in thorns were D, E, K, beta-carotene, lutein, thiamine, riboflavin, pantothenic acid, biotin, and B12, just if you're curious. And we highlighted just a couple of the different competitions that we knew would be occurring. One is a B1, B2, B3 competition, and thiamine hydrochloride, which is the form they use, is oxidized.
B1.
Is oxidized, which is not a good thing, under the influence of riboflavin.
Or vitamin B2.
And the interaction between thiamine and riboflavin is intensified under the influence of niacinamide or nicotinamide. So that's
AKA niacinamide, that's
B3.
the B3. And of course, this is more intensified when they're in mega doses, which they are in the Thorne product. Mega doses meaning that they're giving you hundreds, if not thousands of times more, certainly hundreds of times more than the RDI is recommending.
And when you give someone a lot more of one specific micronutrient, and then you take competition into consideration, you can see how even more dangerous that would be. Because when again, they're going to compete, but if you keep throwing this one in mega amounts, this one doesn't even have a shot.
And this is a good point. A lot of times people say, well, what, if mega doses aren't that great for us, then why are the manufacturers doing it? It's a hit it with the hammer mentality. If you can't get the benefit from a little bit because of these micronutrient competitions, then what we'll do is we'll just throw in a whole bunch more. And then when we throw in hundreds, if not thousands of times more, then sometimes things get through. Well, this is not the way we want to do it. We don't want to hit it with a hammer. We want to use our science. We want to separate, and this is something that you may not understand about nutrients. The reason why we have an AM, PM packet, other than the points that we've brought already, is we needed to make sure that the micronutrients that we found competed with each other were separated. We said we're not going to chelate them to an amino acid. Obviously, we couldn't do that. That's already patented science. So how do we make it so that these two guys don't fight with each other? So it's kind of like kids, right? You can put two fighting kids. You can yell at them all you want. Say, we're going to ground you and we're going to take away this, and if you don't do it, you're going to get a spanking or whatever you're going to do. But if you separate them into two different houses or two different cities or even two different rooms, you can guarantee the fighting stops. And that's what we did with nutrients. So our AM packet is formulated in has completely different micronutrients than the PM packet, which obviously contains all those antagonisms. And it wasn't very easy to create a formula. It did, like Mira said, take us almost 10 years to formulate this so that you're getting all the benefits of all the vitamins and minerals that we put into nutrients.
The second one that we found is B5 and B7. We just decided randomly to choose a couple down there to show you guys, and that's because they compete for absorption because they share a common carrier mediated uptake system. So that was the other one.
There's just a few of those, and I also too, while I'm thinking about it, going back to beneficial forms and quantities, one of the things that the Thorne FX product does is it has a lot of vitamin C. Now, vitamin C is a very important and very good vitamin, but when we're talking about people with statins, again, more and more people, it's really not recommended for those taking a statin to have more than 100 milligrams in their multivitamin. Just be aware of that.
So we basically talked about competition, and while they may have gotten rid of the mineral competitions, we've shown you, I think, that made it really clear, and the research below will make it even more clear, that the vitamin competitions could not have been taken care of. And then there's the last letter is S for synergy. And for every type of micronutrient competition, those 4 different ones that we reviewed, there's an equal and equally as important synergistic relationship that happens as well. So this is like two things helping each other rather than two things hindering each other.
So again, when we formulated nutrients, we wanted to get rid of those micronutrient competitions, but then we've stumbled upon other research that showed that when you combine 2 different micronutrients, you would get a benefit. And sometimes this benefit comes in a lot of different ways. So let's go over a couple of those now. The first one, opposite of chemical competition, is chemical synergy. And again, this takes place during the manufacturing process when 2 micronutrients are introduced to one another and they create an advantageous complex that might help with the absorption or utilization. And a good example of this is zinc and riboflavin, or vitamin B2. Now,
here's a problem with that. I don't know if you remember, because we have it in front of us, but zinc we talked about in the competitions. So zinc and folate would bind together and be insoluble likely. Now here's the problem. If you need zinc to have a beneficial relationship now for the synergy, you can see very clearly it can't because it already had a competition.
If they're all included in the same formula.
So this is how you can pretty much, we can prove to you that without getting rid of the competitions, synergies are likely not going to ever be realized.
If it was already bonded to the folate, it would never be able to be bonded to the riboflavin and be able to get the benefit. Also too, remember that when we're dealing with these these minerals like they are in the Thorne FX that have been chelated.
Right.
How does the chelation affect the synergies? It's protecting it from the folic acid competition, but is it losing out on the synergy? Perhaps. And this is, again, an area of research that would be very interesting to look at. What's the second one?
Opposite of biochemical competition is biochemical synergy. And this is the one you've heard about very, very much probably. And that's that vitamin D enhances the absorption of calcium. And so this is because they help it go faster on the absorption pathway.
Right, but again, how is vitamin D going to help the absorption of the normally absorbed calcium and the normal calcium receptors if calcium has been chelated and going in through the amino acid receptors?
I'd like to also mention that how can it help calcium if there's not enough calcium in it?
Yeah, 88 milligrams. So not exactly the bone builder that we were hoping for in the best multivitamin on the planet. Third one now, physiological synergy.
Right.
Again, this takes place after the micronutrients have been absorbed, but during the time period when one might affect the utilization of another. A synergy, in this particular case, that is a very beneficial one, is vitamin K. Needs to be in the body before calcium arrives so that it can help to dictate, especially when we're talking now about vitamin K2, can dictate and help that calcium get out of the arteries and prevent calcification and into the bones where it can do some good. Again, we're talking about with nutrients, we have both forms of that vitamin K2, Thorne FX only having one. And again, how would that work with the chelated calcium? Probably would work well because we're talking about it's already absorbed. Right. So we're talking about calcium that's free calcium.
And then clinical synergy, which is just like the clinical competition, again, isn't necessarily something you have to worry about with formulation, but this is an example of how things work really well together. So that's like folic acid, folate, B9, vitamin B12, and vitamin B6. These, when they convert, they form a great thing which actually lowers homeocysteine levels, which reduces coronary heart disease. And so that's more just basically when you're sufficient in all of them, you're going to be able to get that great result.
But let's run this down again, though, because we're talking about folic acid.
Which
so if folic acid
is with zinc,
is with zinc, you're not going to be able to get that
competition's done.
The vitamin B6 and B12, those are fine. But again, there are different ways that vitamin B12 can be affected by specific micronutrients.
So you could just see that we have taken care of these synergies, and we know that we can get the synergies that we're counting on because we removed all of the competitions. We started to look at this. We have another diagram below, which is called the dynamic duos of synergy, and it's, they work as superpower teams together. And when
like you and me.
Exactly like you and me. And what we came up with was when you looked at these, we had 34 micronutrients, the same list.
Yeah.
And about how many different?
There's 86 synergies. So
that's a lot of benefits.
48 competitions, 86 synergies.
It's a lot of benefits you could be missing out on if you don't take that competition and just erase it.
Yeah, and just running down the list here, 32 of the 34 have at least one synergy, 23 of the 34 have 3, and 17 of the 34 have at least 5 synergies. So like Mir said, a lot of benefit there if you're using a properly formulated supplement or multivitamin. And that's really what we're talking about. We're hoping that we're laying out for you the evidence. We want you to look at it. We don't want you to believe us.
Be your best health advocate.
Yeah, go
do
out,
the research.
Take a look at it. What multivitamin would you want to take? Do you want to take one that is known to absorb up to 98%, or do you want one that may be averaging around 20% according to the PDR?
When you're putting your hard-earned money into this, you might as well get one. And wait, just on that subject alone, hard-earned money.
Yes. Let's talk about what theirs cost as opposed to nutrients.
We are $39.95 a month.
Right.
And that's
70 cents a drink.
Right.
I mean, that's cheap. Can you even buy a bottle of water for 70 cents a drink? Not that I'd want you to buy BPA-loaded bottles of water, but yes.
Okay, so we're at $39.95 a month, and they're lowering them down.
I think, I don't quote me on this exactly, but I think they're offering like 53 something, and I think the retail price is above that, obviously. So they're more expensive.
It's $20 extra, something like that extra a month, and that's it's your hard-earned money. You decide if you think that that's still the best product for you.
Yeah.
Do you fall into a group that it's not suitable for? Do you want to be the guinea pig for some accessory nutrients that you have never been tested long term?
Are you or your loved one planning on getting pregnant? Are you going to be having surgery? Are you on a statin? Are you
Do you want to have enough calcium, magnesium? Do you want to have all the forms of E? Anyway, there's lots of data below, and we're going to have that in the show notes.
Yeah.
And what we want you to do with this information is really take it and share it with other people who also might be concerned about what kind of a multivitamin they're taking.
Right.
We want you to make sure you share it with your family and friends. And then also, go to the ABCs of supplementation.com. The link is below.
Yep.
So you could actually test your multivitamin if you're taking a different one and not necessarily Thorne FX.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. The information there is completely different than what you just saw here, and it allows you, like Mira said, to actually use your multivitamin or one you want to test. And we have some downloadable check sheets that you can really utilize to do your own evaluation. Now, to be fair and to kind of wrap this up, is Thorne FX the worst multivitamin we've ever seen? Far from it.
Oh no, we get a lot of emails from a lot that are worse. So just so you know,
I think they've done an amazing job at creating an amazing product. And do we respect
Is it the best multivitamin on the planet? I don't think so.
Your choice. In our opinion, I think Nutrients wins hands down. I would recommend that you use Nutrients as your daily multivitamin.
And then if you still have questions after you've watched this, please go to our Contact Us page and send them to us.
Yeah.
Or post them to our Facebook page. We are going to reply to them because, it took us a while to respond to this because we didn't really want to hit our friends. And we don't feel like we're hitting our friends.
No,
we feel like we're just
this
supplying
is really a response to your questions.
Yeah, we're doing this for you because you had some very specific questions about the information. So.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for joining us today on House Calls. And make sure you check out some of the other Calton Nutrition television, different types of episodes that we've got available for you there on YouTube.
Including the Cooking with Caltons, where we actually make Nutrients ice cream.
Yeah.
Really?
If you want to try Nutrients after seeing this, we have a great sample pack available on our website. For $10, we'll ship you a sample pack of 8 different nutrients anywhere in the world, and then we'll give you a $10 off coupon when you order, so it ends up being free. You can find that on the website. Anything else? Quick?
No, that's it.
Well, again, thank you for joining us on House Calls. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.